Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 28th of January. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open in the north, where there has been a serious flare-up of violence on the northern border. There have been a number of IDF casualties as a result of a Hezbollah attack on an army patrol on Mount Dov. Troops returned fire, and the Security Cabinet is meeting at this hour to consider its options. Joining me now in the studio to bring us up to date is IBA's R.A. O'Sullivan. R.A.
Thank you, Erin. Well, at this moment, IDF artillery and aircraft are attacking Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, and smoke can be seen rising in the area north of Metula in retaliation for an attack by Hezbollah on an IDF convoy traveling on Mount Dov. There have been a lot of reports online, on Twitter, in the agencies, and there's still confusion about what exactly happened. Here's what we know. At around 11:30 this morning, anti-tank rockets were fired at an IDF vehicles, causing casualties, some critical. Hezbollah announced about an hour later that one of their cells, called the Quneitra Martyrs Brigade, carried out the attack and scored direct hits on 2 IDF vehicles, and that some of the casualties included officers. The IDF spokesman has confirmed that there are casualties, possibly 7, but that no soldiers have been kidnapped, and censorship prevents us from giving more details on the casualties. After the strike on the vehicles, Hezbollah shelled IDF positions on Mount Dov with mortar fire. There were no injuries, but nevertheless, the Army ordered the evacuation of the Mount Hermon ski slopes from civilians and for residents of the communities on the Lebanon border to stay inside protected shelters. This was lifted about an hour ago. A mortar shell fell on the Alawite village of Rajar and reportedly caused some damage, but no injuries. The IDF retaliated with artillery and airstrikes, and the IDF spokesman said that this was not the last response. Reports from Lebanon say that a UNIFIL peacekeeper from Spain was killed by the IDF fire. Large IDF forces were seen deploying along the border for a major retaliatory operation. We know that IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant Benny Gantz has convened his top brass in the Northern Command. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cut short his visit to Sderot today and reacted to the strike with this warning. Those who try to challenge from the north should remember what happened this summer in Gaza. Hamas suffered the most serious blow since it was founded this past summer, and the IDF is prepared on every front. According to our Arab desk, sources close to Hezbollah leader Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah said that today's action should not necessarily need to lead to a larger confrontation. Israel has been bracing for a retaliatory strike by Hezbollah ever since a strike attributed on Israel on the Syrian side of the Golan border 2 weeks ago that killed 6 Hezbollah terrorists and an Iranian general. At the same time, the IDF was also combing the north today for possible tunnels under the border. The question now is this a conflict limited to strikes by each side on fighters of the other, or will it degrade into a larger battle targeting civilians and a major war involving Israel, Lebanon, and Syria?
Thanks, R.A., for that update. And stay with us now for our next segment. We may see you with the show with an update. Thank you. Joining us now from our by telephone to discuss the latest developments is Arab Affairs reporter for Israel Radio, Iran Singer. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Excellent. Tell me, are the comments being attributed to Hezbollah leader Nasrallah to be taken seriously and perhaps as an attempt to contain the situation?
Well, we are now witnessing attempts by the UNIFIL forces in South Lebanon to make everything they can in order to avoid any further escalation. They are now saying so, and if you measure the Israeli response today to the attack by Hezbollah, you can learn that it's of the interest of Hezbollah and of Israel not to have another war, or what we have heard today, the third Lebanese war. Another very interesting element is what's going on right now inside Beirut. Some political anti-Hezbollah Lebanese elements are now saying that it would be a great mistake if Hezbollah will drag Israel into another war against the Lebanese people. In other words, it is not of the interest, and it is not the duty of Hezbollah to decide whether Lebanon is going to peace with Israel or to war, and it's of the duty of the Lebanese government or the Lebanese parliament. In other words, we are now seeing a whole growing process of let's say, anti-Hezbollah reactions, criticism, because Hezbollah on his own decided today to respond without saying anything to the authorities in Lebanon.
Iran, I understand that the Lebanese military has started to deploy roadblocks in southern Lebanon. Is that significant?
Yes, it is. This is the main difference between what happened today and what happened in 2006 when the Second Lebanese War erupted. Today there's a whole new mechanism which is called the UNIFIL, or the stronger UN mechanism in this region. We are now seeing, or we're now hearing from UNIFIL officers that they are now talking both to the Israelis and to the Lebanese in order to find a way to make sure that there will be a ceasefire. They're using this term, ceasefire, in order to describe that what happened this morning was the beginning of a fire, or maybe a possibility of another war. And when you have this mechanism, when you have this power in the region today, and I mean UNIFIL, it will be it will be easier to persuade the Israelis and the Lebanese side that they should do everything in order to make sure that another war will not erupt. I think, and this is what I study from the latest reports coming from Hezbollah. Hezbollah are not capable of opening another war in Israel. But on the other hand, they had to retaliate. In their eyes, they had no other alternative, especially after what happened 10 days ago when they said that Israel attacked one of their, or a few of their members in the Quneitra region. Right. They had to retaliate, they had to revenge, and this is what we are seeing today.
Arab Affairs reporter for Israel Radio, Eran Singer, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Middle East affairs expert Professor Moshe Maoz told IBA's Margot Dudkevich that he doubts Hezbollah's avenge attack will lead to a full-fledged war with Israel.
Yeah, I have no doubt that what Hezbollah has done now, the retaliation, is a revenge of what Israel has reportedly, according to foreign press, did in the Golan Heights, killing an Iranian general and some Hezbollah members. I think they don't have either Hezbollah or Syria or Iran have no interest to wage a war against Israel. It's just a revenge by Hezbollah under the orders of Iran.
Now, Israel has been striking Syrian army positions. Does this indicate that our non-intervention in Syrian affairs has come to an end?
No, Israel also is not interested, in my opinion, in a war against Syria, because it can also develop into a war against this Shia crescent, so to speak, which is not a friend to Israel, but this is not the time to do it, despite the elections. It's not the time to do it, so Israel is not interested too. But the problem in the Middle East, or the Middle East, if you wish, that small incidents can develop into a full-fledged war. Take Lebanon, 2006, almost the same accident now, trying to kidnap some soldiers, and they developed it into a war. Can happen. So, but I think both sides, and both sides are relatively responsible. No, I mean, so it doesn't serve their interest to go into a war, because Hezbollah can get a bloody nose, not only Hezbollah, Lebanon too. Israel can topple the regime of Bashar if there is a war. And this is nobody on their side is interested in it.
Now, are there any back-channel efforts that can be made to calm the situation at this point, or do you believe the situation will escalate?
Again, it's very hard to say, because Israel retaliated. It's kind of a vicious circle, and it's very dangerous. As I indicated earlier, that a small incident can develop into full-fledged war, but you have the usual adversaries, American, Europeans. There is no end of it. Even Jordanians, Egyptians, they all can do the job. And I think things can come because nobody in this region has an interest to go to war now.
Moving to other news, and there's been a new twist in the controversy over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's slated speech, the joint session of the U.S. Congress. Senate Democrats have put the brakes on legislation, advancing another round of sanctions against Tehran, effectively ending a potential showdown between lawmakers and U.S. President Barack Obama over international nuclear negotiations. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez has expressed skepticism that a deal will materialize, and he's been a leading proponent of the new legislation. But he now says that he and 9 other Democrats will not push the bill at least until the end of March. Menendez's concession to the White House is good news for Obama, who has threatened to veto any new sanctions legislation. Republicans could still move ahead on the bill, but Congress would not have enough votes necessary to override a presidential veto without bipartisan support. House Speaker John Boehner fueled the rising friction with the White House last week by announcing that he invited Prime Minister Netanyahu to address Congress on March 3rd. In defense of that move, again yesterday, Boehner said that the House is an equal branch of the government that has the right to invite Netanyahu to address members about the serious threat posed by Iran. In other news, Prime Minister Netanyahu marked International Holocaust Memorial Day by pledging to prevent Iran from producing nuclear weapons. During a speech at Yad Vashem, Netanyahu said that his duty as Prime Minister is to ensure that the State of Israel will never again be threatened with destruction, and that the agreement being negotiated between the P5+1 world powers and Tehran does just that.
The Ayatollahs in Iran, they deny the Holocaust while planning another genocide against our people. Let me be clear. The Jewish people will defend itself by itself against any threat. That's what the Jewish state is all about. On this day of Holocaust remembrance, I pledge to you what we could neither say nor do 70 years ago. Israel will always do what needs to be done to ensure the security of the Jewish people and the one and only Jewish state. That is the significance of this date.
Turning now to the election, and parties began submitting their list to the Central Elections Committee today on the first of a 2-day affair, although several factions are still not ready to do so. Here to tell us who and why is IBA's political correspondent Eli Wogelenter.
The deadline for submitting party lists to run in the Knesset election on March 17th is tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. But some major parties still don't have their candidates lined up. Labor does. MK Hilik Bar, Secretary General of the Labor Party, was first online today and filed the Zionist camp's Knesset list with the Central Elections Committee. Other parties also registered today, including the Pirate Party, the Breslov Party, and the Green Leaf Party. Bayit UD leader Naftali Bennett is under fire from within his own party over the placing of ex-soccer star Eli Ohana to a safe slot. Party activists took to social media to express their disappointment, especially because Ohana supported the 2005 Gaza disengagement and said in an interview at the time that he doesn't think it would be a problem if the government dismantled all settlements. The criticism has included the resignation of MK Zvulun Kalfa from the party list. Bennett said he is confident the decision to include Ohana is the right one and urged the religious Zionist public to recognize the importance of reaching out to all sectors of the Israeli public. And remember that Likud primary that took place December 31st? Well, we now have the final results. Tzipi Chotovely has won the recount vote by 101 votes over Avi Dichter, and she will now be placed 20th on the party slot, and he will get the 26th position. And finally, 2 final notes. Jerusalem Post correspondent Caroline Glick will not be chosen for the Likud list, and the negotiations for a joint list between Eli Yishai's Yachad Ha'amitanu and Michael Ben-Ari's Otzma Yehudi parties are still ongoing in a last-ditch effort after talks collapsed last night. We'll give you the results of that tomorrow. Erin?
Thanks for that report. As part of international commemorations of the 70th year since the liberation of Auschwitz, world leaders joined survivors and religious leaders at the former Nazi death camp in Poland. The notorious complex has become the most poignant symbol of the Holocaust, where 90% of the 1.5 million murdered victims were Jews. The presidents of Germany and France joined hundreds of others at a giant tent erected over the entrance to the camp. Polish President Bronislaw Komorowski told those gathered that his nation has a special role as a guardian of the memory of Auschwitz and the Holocaust, because the German occupiers turned his country into a place of exceptional terror and an everlasting cemetery of Jews. Among the 300 aging survivors able to attend yesterday's service were those who urged the world to never forget the Third Reich's genocidal attempts, lest they be repeated.
For if you, the leaders in the world, will remember and to teach others to remember, then the Holocaust and other atrocities like Darfur, Biafra, Kosovo, as well as attacks as the present one in Paris, will have no place on the face of the earth.
This afternoon, officials in Amman announced that they are ready to give in to the Islamic State demand to release a female Islamic terrorist in exchange for a captured Jordanian pilot being held hostage. Earlier, an online message from the Islamic State group in Syria warned that the pilot and the Japanese journalist being held captive have less than 24 hours to live. We get more from the Associated Press.
As the Japanese government scrambles to secure the release of a journalist held hostage, a new threat from the Islamic State group.
I only have 24 hours left to live, and the pilot has even less.
This audio, excerpted from a video released over the weekend, purportedly depicts Japanese hostage Kenji Goto warning that his life is in danger, as well as a Jordanian pilot that the Islamic State group is also holding hostage. The group is demanding the release of an Iraqi woman sentenced to death in Jordan for her involvement in a deadly 2005 terror attack that killed 60 people. The Japanese government working with the Jordanian government to find a resolution.
Amid an extremely difficult situation, we remain unchanged in requesting the Jordanian government's cooperation towards securing an early release of Mr. Goto. This policy has been approved by the Prime Minister, and we have relayed through the Foreign Minister the policy to the Japanese task force on the ground.
Weekend video also showed a still photo of Goto holding what appears to be a photo of the body of a Japanese hostage, Haruna Yukawa, who the extremists had previously threatened to kill along with Goto if a $200 million ransom payment wasn't met. Japan, along with other industrial nations, has been reluctant to negotiate with extremists. Meanwhile, the phrase, "I am Kenji," has become a cry for many Japanese, urging the government to secure Goto's release. Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
British-born Israeli journalist David Landau passed away of brain cancer in Jerusalem yesterday at the age of 67. Landau's career spanned 4 decades, and he had a huge impact on leading political figures as well as his colleagues. At this hour, he is being laid to rest at the Har HaMenuchot Cemetery in the capital. Now rejoining us to speak about the life of David Landau is IBA's Eli Wogelenter.
I first met David Landau in the late 1980s, and I can honestly say he really was one of those larger-than-life figures you read about. He held several top positions over the course of his career here, including editor-in-chief of Haaretz, founding editor of the English-language Haaretz, managing editor of the Jerusalem Post, Israel bureau chief of the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, and was also the longtime correspondent in Israel for The Economist. Landau was also awarded the Order of the British Empire last year for services to peace and contribution to UK-Israel ties. A black kippah-wearing Orthodox Jew who held radical left-wing views, David led a walkout of some 30 journalists at the Jerusalem Post in 1990 in protest over management intervention in editorial content. Landau wrote and ghostwrote several books, including Piety and Power, The World of Jewish Fundamentalism, about Israel's Haredi community, and a biography of Ariel Sharon published last year. Former President Shimon Peres, who collaborated with David on 2 memoirs, said that Landau was a rare combination of an individual, religious in depth and liberal in breadth. Uri Dromi, former head of the government press office, had this to say about David.
Always holding original, fresh views. To be with him was always a bit of fresh air, something you knew you're going to be surprised by him.
President Reuven Rivlin described him as an uncompromising friend and an equally uncompromising adversary. It was a pleasure to be his friend, and it was a privilege to be his ideological adversary. Landau was a journalist who did not hesitate to speak his mind, a reporter who called events only as he saw them, and one who could not be ordered or directed from above. "This is me," he would tell his employers. "Take me as I am, or don't take me at all. That was certainly David. He is survived by his wife, Jackie, their 3 children, and 8 grandchildren. The world of journalism has lost a giant. Erin?
Thank you. And now taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today gained strength against all major foreign currencies, as did share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us that tomorrow we can expect a slight rise in temperatures under clear to partly cloudy skies. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. REA O'Sullivan now returns to the studio with an update on the situation on the northern border. REA, what is the latest?
Well, the latest, we're still waiting for more information about the casualties. Some of them were taken to the Ziv Hospital in Safed, some were taken to Rambam Hospital in Haifa. Meanwhile, the reports from the north say that things are sort of calmed down a bit. There's a little bit of a lull. And the question now is whether this is a calm because things are going back to normal, or whether or not this is a calm before the storm. We're going to have to wait to see what's going on now with the deployment of the forces in the north and with any kind of reaction by Hezbollah.
Is there a call-up, as far as you know, by the IDF of any reserve units? Has that happened yet?
No, as far as we know, that's not happened. But we do see, and there has been footage also of convoys of armored personnel, vehicles, and tanks going up to the north, perhaps to prepare for any eventuality, as the Prime Minister said earlier today, that the IDF is prepared. So the forces are being sent up to the north. The image that Israel wants to put out right now is that we are ready for anything to happen. Who decides what's going to happen? We have to wait and see.
Yes, we'll all be monitoring it, and thank you very much. Of course, we're all going to pray for calm. Well, thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow, same time, same channel. Hope to see you then. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a peaceful evening and shalom from Jerusalem.